Well, good morning. This is Pops working on a valve job here. I was hoping you can see this. One of the things I had done here was picked out my valve guide, pilot, get it in there so it's nice and snug. 60 degree for the bottom. This is that new one I just got. 15 is for the top of 30 degree seats. It doesn't work well on this one. Well, this is a 45 degree seat, so I can undercut it here. Can overcut it with a 30 and then finish with a 45. Well, what I've had to do is actually undercut it, overcut it, and try and bring the seat to the middle on this side because it was black. Now it's all the way around there for the most part. Now how do we decide where it's going to be? Well, you decide your finished seat, cover it with Sharpie. But the other thing we do is we take the dividers here and set it on the valve where you want the seat to be. You can see that, right? It's a little wide. Let me bring it in a touch. You're saying, well, that's not a critical. Well, it is, but it isn't. Where you want it on the valve is more important than the number you come up with to put it there. Bring it in a little more. All right. So about a 64th from the edge. And this part of the valve here, that black line, is called the margin. You got to have margin there because that allows heat to dissipate. It's a thicker edge that can handle the heat, let's put it that way. If it's a thin edge, knife edge, there's no place for the heat to actually go because it needs time to collect and then go in towards the stem here where your cooling is. Now, we want to check my seat here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but when I measure, the top of that shiny is where I want it. Well, we're just about there, aren't we? You say, okay, what's the check? Well, there's two ways to check it. One of them, actually three, but all right, come on. Got it in there. Now, one of the ways is put your Sharpie on there and watch it, but the other one is I'll bring it down, be sure it's hitting. Smack it a few times. Let's look around the valve. I haven't done this yet. I can see it, but I don't know if you can. Just inside the edge where my fingernail is a nice, new, clean edge. You say, but it is. It's designed for an interference angle with small engines. It really is. Okay. So I'm done here for the most part. You say, well, how about the bottom of the seat? Where's that? Yes, dear. Have fun. Be good. That's my love. Well, you can do the same thing. Take it and measure, turn it in until you're at the bottom of the seat. Roughly, if I look at it there, right about there. Okay, and then put it on the valve. And from my vantage point, I have to turn it here. And it lets me know my seat is probably in the 30 to 40 thousandths range, which means I can open it up. Now, because of that line where it is here, and my edge is up here, the bottom edge, so I've got 30 to 40 thousandths, about 40 thousandths in there. I can actually move the seat up. In other words, I can take my 45, since I have room on both sides, it's centered. And put my guide in. And turn my 45. Now, if you tap your seat like I just did, you know you're going to come up with a burr. But it's not going to be that. It's an exhaust seat, so it's not really going to be a problem. Now turn it with the T-handle. When you finish, just do a light. So if there's any burrs that you made when you're turning to remove meat, now you take a look. It's wider. And it's lower, isn't it? So, now you know it's going to be wider at the top. Let's get it there. Ever so slightly. Now you take your valve, do your check. You still have it before the margin. Now you know you're wider. The other way you can do it is take your feeler gauge and compare it sideways, or you pull everything out and take a caliper and put a caliper down in there. But that's how you do it. Yeah, that's in there pretty fair. You can put it in snug, but more tight, I should say, but that's plenty good enough. Now, what did I do before I started? You see a few burrs here and there? Well, I was assuming, and apparently correct, that the seat had pounded down in here a little bit, because the valve had absolutely no tappet clearance down there. None. In fact, when I put it in and turned it, it spun freely. So on Briggs & Stratton's, it's easier to see here. Let's see, yeah, you can see it probably. Let me get a little better light on it. There we go. Okay, the valve seat edge is here. There's actually an edge right there. That's where the aluminum begins. Okay, tap out here and the outer edge, just beyond the valve seat. And you tap it to tighten it in the hole. Now here there's a big ledge that tells me that it's pounded down in there almost 10 thousandths extra. And because it was wider, I mean harder to get it here, and it was hitting harder here when I was cutting, it tells me that everything is moved this way. But when I tapped it in, that tightens it up, and you say, well, yeah, it could oblong the seat. It could, but you fix that. That's what these guys are for. They take care of that problem. But the seat is now tight in there again. Now I'm going to have to do the same thing here and double check it, because pounding here can affect that side, not nearly as much. So they'll all get checked before we're done, but that's the same process as going to be here. It's down into the aluminum just a little bit further, which is good. This is actually a good thing to have happen. So the valve may have stretched. There may have been a lot of things that caused it, but usually what it is the seat's pounded down into the aluminum farther, which this is, and I can see it even here compared to here. Then the cure is tighten it, cut your seat, bring the bottom up, the top down until you have a circle. It can be off center as long as it's not off center any more than you can fix, and bring it back to a concentric seat in there. Now you say, well, it's not going to be perfect. Well, no, but it'll work very well. Another thing, you notice the muffler is still here. Yeah, I couldn't even turn that nut. And since I was able to take it out without doing that, I left her right there, because anything else you do is going to start screwing things up. The problem we have here with this engine is the customer wants it to turn. My buddy Bill, I don't know if you can see it or not. Yeah, you can. See all the score marks? Yeah, it's going to burn oil forever. It'll be getting a new oil minder here shortly. But there you go. That's how you work that. And you saw when I tapped that valve in there that we made a line on it. Well, there's going to be a new line on it now, isn't there? Ooh, that didn't work. Okay, now let me make a new line here for you. I had to turn it because it was hitting the tappet instead, because I turned it to show you stuff. There you go. Let me get my light. I knocked things all on the ground here. There we are. I wish I could turn you around, but I can't. There's my valve, and there's the face. You need it this way. There you go. You can see the line on there. It's a little wider because I moved it up just a few thousandths, so it widens it, and it'll match. You hear that hollow sound when it hits? You can hear it because it's the well, I can't get it out with my fingernails. Now listen. The hollow sound means it's seating. The clicking noise you heard before, it was hitting the tappet. Now the tappet, down in here, way over there. Yeah, it's hard to see from what I got there. And what I have to do is, there's the lifter down below. Then there's a valve up above. And that gap in there has to be a minimum of 7 thousandths when I'm done. Now, the thing is to have it 8 to 9 and then put the spring on there, because it actually does push it down another thousandths of an inch, at least, sometimes 2. And you say, well, that's not, don't ask me why, it does. And when everything's pounded up and solid up here, that helps take away some of that. So you can always count on about a thousandths that you're going to lose. So set it for 9 freewheel and then put her together. If you set it for 7 and you lose and you go to 6, it's not going to be that big a deal. But you're better off a little loose on an air-cooled engine than you are tight, obviously, because when he pulled this over, you should have heard it. Whoosh! And then after I ground the face of the, or cut the face of the valve, it was really whooshing. So anyway, there you are. Now you have an idea of what we're doing and what I can do and what you can do. Now this stuff isn't cheap anymore. The kit, I think the kit with both cutter heads that you can get, Amazon has it, or NEWAY, or I preferred that you went and see Dennis Ben Savage down there at Beam Equipment. Give him a call. It's beamequipment.com, and go on there and you can see a NEWAY kit. Most of them are in the $700 to $800 range anymore. I bought mine for a few bucks. In fact, part of the kit I was given before that from Brockport Lawn and Snow, Jack Crooks. Actually, John W. Crooks Jr. I knew his dad too. We got along great. Dad was funny. He had a Mazda that had some 300,000 miles on one of the old RX rotary station wagon. I think he lived out in Arizona and drove back and forth like a dozen times in that thing. It's incredible. Sit right there and you could barely hear it run. Yeah, no valves. Yeah, it was like a 2-stroke, only with 3 lobes. It acted 4-stroke. It's pretty cool. Anyway, I'll let you go. Now you know how to do your own valve job easy. It's not cheap. You're going to blow $800 by the time you're done. But it's worth it. If it's not in the frame, this is the NEWAY turn tool. And if you're not in the actual working frame like I am here, this thing works nice. You want it down a little bit low, so you're working probably around belly button level. Then you can see and hear, you can feel this thing, but it's pretty big. And when it gets up here, it starts to tilt. So that's why I stayed with the T-handle. And then always finish it off with your fingers. And when in question, right there, black it. Put a Sharpie on there. Sharpie isn't going to hurt a thing. So, and I showed you the Gizmatic before, did I not? Or was that with somebody else? This is the Gizmatic. I can't switch it like I did on Facebook. The V-block. If I move my water here, the V-block sits in the vise, pinches your valve, and this upper portion moves, and it centers. Where are we here? There we are. And it centers with the valve, even after it's tight. You get the valve nice and tight, center this up, and then while you're turning, even if it's off a little bit, it doesn't matter, because when you turn this, this is your feed. That brings the whole thing up into the valve, and this thing can float to match the valve. Excellent. You say, what happens if your valve was bent or way off? Well, you're going to have a problem no matter what you do. It's a bad valve. And you know what? I think you'll find it right here. Because one side will hit and the other won't. You won't be able to line it up. And if you do cut it, it'll feel funny. It won't feel smooth. Pull it out, take a look. You don't have to take it all the way out of the vise. You just have to loosen it up, take the valve out. It's nice. And I've done diesel valves with this too. Hat's air-cooled diesel. Does a good job. In fact, I dulled a couple cutters doing them. But I did probably 4 valves in it before there was a problem. Just saying. This is Pop saying, peace out, folks.